All right, folks, happy Tuesday. Go ahead and check in for me if you have not already done so, which you have not. 4 of you.
Like lyrics and stories.
Okay. So yeah, a few of you asked, thank you. So as I told you, this weekend was Christmas for me. It was my annual trip to New York. I did have a 9 a.m. East Coast time flight this morning. I don't even want to think about how long I've been up. So if I fall asleep up here, just give me a little nudge, or if I'm just a word salad not making any sense, just let me know. I normally cancel this class, but I have some other things this semester I have to cancel for, so hopefully this is useful. Because I'm that excited for it. Not excited for it. Okay, because I know you wanted to know. All right, so I did not take many pictures this time, but this is me and Bobby, my wife, in the president's suite. Celebrity sightings, Stephen Colbert and Michael Che behind him, Serena Williams and Alicia Keys. Who else is there I didn't get pictures of? John Mayer, Hugh Jackman was there. I forget who else right now. This is me courtside. There's 17 courts. So some people think you go and you just go to a tennis match. Unless you're there for the finals, that's actually not what you do. There's 17 courts. What you see on TV is usually in the big stadium, but there are 4 stadiums. And then you can go to any of the courts. This is the second biggest court. So this is me courtside. This is Tommy Paul. This is the main stadium, seats about 20,000. The roof is retractable. This was taken 2 years ago, but I wanted to give you a bit of a perspective. So this was taken from the top level of the main stadium, kind of looking out on the grounds. This was built for the World's Fair, like in the 60s. So it goes this way and this way, you can't even see. But the running joke is you go to a food and wine festival and stay and watch some tennis. So there's restaurants, shops, like music, everything going on. This picture was clearly taken late at night because usually this is pretty crowded. It can be actually this crowded sometimes. Hopefully we should hit 1 million people this year. Brings into the city of New York, so talk about tourism, brings in about $1.8 billion to the city of New York. Okay, that's ticket sales, that's hotels, that's food and beverage that people spend money on. $1.8 billion. That is more than the Mets, that is more than the Yankees for their season. Okay. Just to give you an idea of the scope. This is one of the smaller stadiums here, but what I want to see, so that's the big stadium that has the retractable roof. It's because it brings in so much to New York, you will see it everywhere. So this was, you don't quite get scope, but this is in the middle of Times Square. This is a gigantic billboard. And yeah, the slides. There we go. Yeah, so that's that. So It's super fun and I love it. Okay, for today, what we're gonna do, we're gonna practice a little bit more identifying measurement level. And then we're gonna talk about how we write questionnaires or surveys at specific levels and to get the information we want. So to start out with, you can scan this. If you're on a laptop, it's actually a lot easier. I recommend going to tinyurl.com/402 today. And what I want you to do on a piece of paper, on your computer, whatever, as you go through that survey, and I'll probably just give you like 3 to 5 minutes. You probably won't finish it. That's okay. Identify what the variable is. So what is it trying to measure? What is it measuring? What level of measurement? So there's your mnemonic. So nominal or categorical, just have attributes or characteristics that are different from each other. They're categories. Ordinal, we can put in some sort of order, but we don't know the distance between answers. And then interval, we know the distance between. Okay. Variable, level, and then we've touched on this, and we're going to do it a little bit more today. But just we start. So single or multi-item. So what I mean by that is, so let's say we're trying to measure stress. I guess example check. Are we doing that with one question or one item, or are we doing that with 7? So is it a single one, or is it a multi-item? What the variable is may not always be obvious to you, but use your brain, see what you think it is. Okay, what are those 3 questions, 7 questions, 1 question? What is it trying to measure? What's the idea there? Okay. So again, I'm just giving you 3 to 5 minutes. You probably won't get through the whole thing. And then we'll review a bit together. What questions do you have? Go. Feel free to talk to each other if you'd like. Don't worry about filling it out. I mean, you can if it helps you, but. Just walked in, make sure you check in. Staring over your shoulder just to get a feel for how far along they are. Maybe another minute. Finish up the one you're on. All right, let's talk about this for a few minutes. This was the class project for this class. The last 2 semesters, you're gonna do something different, but this will give you an idea. So when we use a questionnaire, a survey, first thing we want is we always want to give instructions. Okay? You'll see a lot of things that just start. Okay, well, what's this about? What's it for? Always thank people. You do it at the beginning or the end or both. You'll be surprised how much that makes your response rate. So the number of responses go up when you thank people and tell them what it's for. Always give people contact information if they have any questions. Okay, you can end it at the beginning or the end. And then we bribe people with the drawing. Are you currently a student at ASU? Yes or no? What level of measurement is this? Anyone can shout it out. Nominal, it's just a category, right? You are not more or less of a student, you just are or you are not. Okay. This is called Likert or Likert-like scale, where we ask people to agree or disagree with a statement. This is fairly common. So this goes strongly disagree to strongly agree. 5 points. You remember what level? There's 2 possible answers to this, but we're going to assume 1. Actually, let me ask you this. Let me start. Can I put these in order? Do I know what? Yes. So we know it's not nominal. We know it's not categorical because we know there's order to them. Right. So then the question becomes, is it ordinal or is it interval? Okay. So that question is, do I know the distance between these? Okay. And is the distance between them the same? Okay. I see one shrug, which is a totally fair answer, by the way. Okay. What's anyone else think? Yeah, Megan.
I think it's interval because you can number them.
Yeah, so we're usually gonna assume this is interval. What that allows us to do is we're gonna call this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and when we get to analysis, that's gonna allow us to do more things. Okay, that's gonna allow us to figure out more things. So are these really like level of agreement, the same distance apart? I don't know. But we're gonna assume they are and call this interval. Okay. This was probably a tough one to start out with. Do you think these are measuring separate things, or do you think this is measuring one thing? Is it single item or multi-item? They're both is a right answer and not. I mean, there is a right answer, but there's not a wrong answer. That's like a brain teaser. Like here's You can't really be wrong here, because I just want to know what you think. You think it's measuring one thing. What do you think it's measuring, Savannah? What do all these have in common?
What the questions were.
Here, you already did good. I'll let you, Colton.
For single, I would say it's ASU community as a whole.
Okay, ASU community, Joe thinks, yeah, you're right, very good. This is a measure, a commonly used measure of sense of community. Okay. Now, what we would do, when we're talking about analyzing it, and we'd say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we add them all up. And then take an average score. So we get like someone's average sense of community is 3.2 or something. Okay, because we take all these into account, and that would be the sense of community. Okay. This one again is a little tricky, and you could convince me in multiple things, but and you put these in order. Yeah, those of you who are shaking your head, no, I agree with you. Okay, you can't really put these in order. Okay, so if you can't put them in order, what level of measurement does that make it?
Nominal.
Nominal. Yep, nominal or categorical, either one is fine. One thing or individual things? And by the way, I would accept either answer. It depends on kind of what you want to know, but I'm curious what you think. Here there really is not a wrong answer. What do you think? If you were analyzing this, do you think you should analyze those separately, or do all these together make one thing? Grace?
I would just say it's like student engagement.
Student engagement? Yeah, I think that's a great one. I see a couple heads shaking yes. Yeah. Yeah, and that was actually our intent. So it's a great answer. Like, we considered this student engagement and we took it as one thing. However, because it's not an interval scale, we can't actually sum it because we can't call these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we were thinking of it as student engagement, but you can't actually add them. Okay. So again, we'll start at the top. So we go from very little to very much. Can we put these in order? Do we know which one is more than the other? Is it auditory, yes or no, Eric, or kinesthetic moment? Okay. How much does ASU emphasize the following? Is it quite a bit more or less than some? Yeah, we can put those in order, so we know it's not nominal. And we know it's not nominal. So the question becomes, is it ordinal or interval? So can we label these 1, 2, 3, 4? Would that make sense? Yeah, probably. We can probably make that assumption. Okay, in which case it becomes interval. You treat it as ordinal, it's not wrong. This interval allows us to do a little bit more with it. Okay. We've already talked about these strongly agree to strongly disagree. We're going to call this interval. Okay. I am motivated to graduate and I can overcome all barriers so that I can graduate. Right. So lumping these together as some sort of motivation to graduate scale. Okay. You could start over. Would you go to ASU again? Definitely no to definitely yes. Can we put these in order? Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Can we call these 1, 2, 3, 4? Those of you going, that's probably the best answer. Probably okay, not perfect, but yeah, so ordinal or interval. You could treat it either way as long as you did the right analysis. Okay. Quality of interactions with people at ASU. Okay. Can we put them in order? Is good better than average? Is average better than poor? Yes. Okay, so we know it's not nominal, so we can cross that off the list. Okay. Can we call this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Yeah, so it's interval. Okay, so it's interval. This one you're gonna get mad at me, but let's do it. All right. How many hours do you spend in a typical 7-day week doing the following? Okay. Is 11 to 15 more than 1 to 5 more than 0? Yes, we can put it in order. We know it's not nominal. It's not categorical. Is the distance between these, do we know the distance between them? Can we subtract this from this? See, so I'm unsure, and I probably set you up because I told you you weren't gonna like me. So you're like, he's gonna trick us. I know he is. I am. You're right. All right. So if you said ordinal, I would say, yeah, you're right. This person, I can't subtract these because this person might be working 39. And this person might be working 17, this person might be working 21, and this person be 17, and the same answer. So I really don't know how far apart they are. Okay. So ordinal is a totally acceptable answer here. We often, and here's where you're gonna hate me, sorry. We often use this rule of thumb, if you have 5 or more answers like this, we treat it as interval. The reason is, and once we get that many choices, these are kind of constructs. We don't expect people are really counting. It's in general. Again, if you treat this as ordinal or if you treat this as interval, either one is going to be okay as long as you do the correct analysis that goes with it. Okay. In some ways, if you're not feeling super confident, I would consider this ordinal because it's going to make more sense. Okay. And it's going to help you with the concept because if you can't subtract the difference, you can't know exactly how far there. What is your major? Can we put this in order? No. Those are good kinesthetic moments. So it's nominal. Nominal. Okay, never to fairly often. Okay, it's never more than sometimes or less than sometimes. Yes, so we know it's not nominal. Okay, so we can cross that off. Okay, can I call these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Yeah. Yep. Okay. Yep. So we're going to call this interval, and we're going to treat it as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Keep doing that. So. Oh, I forgot. What do you think it's measuring? One thing or multiple things? Did we get this far? Or is this the first time you're seeing this? Okay, yes, I think you're saying. Okay. So how often have you been upset? How often have you felt you were unable to control things? How often have you felt nervous and stressed? How often have you found you could not cope with all the things you had to do? I'll tell you, we're trying to measure one thing. What do you think it is? I'm just curious.
Mental health.
Mental health, yes, could even be a little more specific than that. Okay, more specific than that.
Mental health in college students.
Good guess, but take who's filling it out of the question. So if you just saw this, you wouldn't know it's college students filling it out. Okay. What do these things sound like? Hey,
Like frequency of negative emotions.
yep. What's the negative emotion here?
Stress.
It's stress. Yeah, this is the perceived stress scale. That's a very commonly used measure. These also, we're going to talk about questionnaires in a minute, but I find, particularly with longer questionnaires, these little interruptions kind of help people finish. Like, you can do it, come on. Like, it seems silly, but it helps. And so here, and I like to write surveys with a bit more of an informal tone, right? And this may sound a bit nuts, but I promise you it works. Like when you're a little more informal, people start to feel like there's a relationship there and they don't log out because they feel like they know you. Where if you're writing like a robot, then it's just like, I'm not going to fill this out for a machine, but you're almost finished. Following questions will help us understand more about you. These are not required, but we would really appreciate it if you would answer them. All your responses are anonymous, okay? Meaning no one will know what you said. No one will be able to tell who you are based on your responses. Also, remember to enter the drawing with a Starbucks gift card. You must complete the entire survey to get here. Right. It's a little encouragement. So race, ethnicity. Can I put these in order? No. Yep, so we know it's nominal. Okay. No order nominal. ends. I don't know if that helps or not. I've never. No order nominal. Race, ethnicity, age, all these things are what we call demographics. Is that a term that's familiar to you? I always throw it around. I'm never sure people actually, okay, yeah. Demo people, okay, graphics measure, so things about demographics. Gender, nominal category, right? Do either your parents graduate from a four-year college and put this in order? Just categories, yep, just categories, no order, nominal. Military vet, no order, nominal. Okay. Year in school, can I put these in order? Do I know who's farther along in school? Yep, okay. Do I know how far apart these are?
Not between graduate though, because you don't know how many years they took off between.
Yeah, so here's another one where I'd be okay with however you decided to treat it. Okay. I personally treat this as ordinal. But you could certainly make a case, because these are like in order. Are graduate students awfully broad? Are they a master's student, a PhD student? Are they a law student? Okay, transfer nominal, right? Ability condition nominal. Thank you. Click here, okay, to enter your email to win a gift card. All right, now I did something here. To be entered in the Starbucks gift card, click here. You'll be redirected to a separate survey. So it's not obvious when you click because it stays on the same page. It's not now because the thing's already finished. But it actually takes you to a separate survey. Why did I do that?
So that everyone's answers still stay anonymous.
Yep, because then I can't connect the email to their answers. Okay, Grace. Excellent. Excellent. All right, let's talk about questionnaires. And honestly, you all have been killing this, so this is going to be easy because we've already kind of talked about a lot of this. But let's get some terminology down and start thinking towards analysis. All right. Variable level. At the nominal or categorical level and the ordinal level, the only analysis I can do is what's called a frequency. So I can count how many people are in that category. I can count how many tourism majors. I can count how many right-handed people. I can count how many people are between the ages of 0 to 20. Okay. It's the only thing I can do is count. At the interval level, I can take an average score. Average score, which gives us a little more power. So we'll get more into that, but that's a little bit. All right. So we've taken an idea, a concept. We've made it more specific. So we've turned mental health into stress. Then we've operationalized it through a variable. Like stress, we measure with those 7 items. So now we're going to talk about creating questionnaires. Which to remind you of our 3 pieces of evaluation, it's criteria, what does success look like? Okay. Evidence, which is our data, okay? And then we analyze the evidence, then we make a judgment. So who cares? What do we do with this information? So in this class, our primary way to collect evidence is going to be through questionnaires. Right. And we're going to define some terms, we're going to learn how to write some questionnaire items and learn a few tips about them. Right, some terminology to wrap our head around. First time today, I'll complain about terminology in this class. Right? Instrument. The instrument is the tool that we use to collect data. It's not on the slides, so I'll repeat it again. The instrument is the tool that we use to collect data. In this class, the most common instrument we will use is a questionnaire or a survey. Questionnaire or a survey. Okay. But an interview could also be your instrument. Okay. An observation could be your instrument. Okay, for our purposes, it's almost always gonna be a survey or questionnaire. Items. Okay. Items are statements on a questionnaire. Let me show an example, because items I think makes more sense when we see it. Okay. This is an anxiety measurement. So each of these, feeling nervous, anxious, on an edge, say not at all, several days, whatever. This is an item. This is an item. This is an item. This is an item, 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 item. We don't call them questions. In part because they're not always a question. Frequently they're rate your level of agreement. That's not a question. Okay, with the following statements. We call these items. Scales. Second time today I complain about vocabulary. Okay. This, how you measure it, okay, how you measure it is the scale. You will also hear this entire thing referred to as the scale. I'm sorry. I will tell you, and every time I complain about the vocabulary being confusing, I can promise you I will never try to trick you on that vocabulary. And if you get it wrong, I'll just correct you and I'm not gonna, because that's confusing. Because this is the scale, right? How you measure it. And then whenever we use a multi-item measurement, we'll refer to it as a scale. So this is the anxiety scale. Okay. So how you measure it here, nearly half, more than half, several days, and the whole thing. Both of those we refer to as scales. Sorry. Measures of hard. Okay. Okay. So again, if we look at this, each of these are items. Feeling nervous, anxious, on the edge, not being able to stop or control worrying to it. All these are items. How we measure it, not at all, several days, more than half, nearly every day. This is the scale. And also this entire thing we would refer to as an anxiety scale. Okay, let's think about level of measurement. So first of all, can I put these in order? Is nearly every day more than not at all, more than several days? Yes, so we know it's not nominal. And we know it's not nominal because I can put it in order. Okay. Is the distance between them the same? Can I call this 1, 2, 3, 4? I see this like, and that's, yeah, you're right. Probably. Okay. I feel fairly comfortable with saying this is 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, technically, probably not. Okay. If I'm really counting my days, this could be 6, this could be more than half, could be 4, it could be 5. If I'm really counting, then it's ordinal. Okay. But really what I'm going for is an impression. I realize that saying this could be ordinal, this could be integral is confusing. And what I'll tell you, there's some art and science to it, right? So if you treat it as ordinal, if you treat it as interval, both are correct as long as you do the appropriate analysis that accompanies it. I'm comfortable with that being interval. And this is state. All right. On a questionnaire. Types of questions. So one way to break them down is to break them down by open-ended or closed-ended, or actually like the term forced choice. These are fairly self-explanatory. In an open-ended question or item, see, I screw up the terminology here too. This really should say types of items. If I screw it up, I'm not going to hold you accountable for it. Okay. Types of, so open-ended, the person can give you any answer that they want. Any answer that they want. So if I said, Brandon, how are you feeling today? That's open-ended. Open-ended. The advantage to open-ended is it's going to give us more detail. It's going to give us a bigger wealth of options, right? More nuance, more information. The other type of item, closed-ended, or I prefer forced choice because that's really what it is. I am forcing you to choose between these options. If I said, Summer, on a scale of 1 to 5, how are you feeling today? 5 being amazing, 1 being I should have never gotten out of bed. Okay, that is forced choice. She has to tell me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I didn't give her the choice to say 2.5, or I didn't give her the choice to say, well, started pretty good, but then the day got bad. Now I'm hungry. Right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's what I want to know. You are forced to choose one of these. Both the advantage and the disadvantage is it limits the possibility of answers. Okay, so you're not getting as much rich detail, but way easier to analyze and standardize. So if I were to ask everybody, like, tell me how you feel, and I were to get your answers, it might be a little tough to compare them. Okay. But if I were to ask everybody on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being great, 1 being should have never gotten out of bed, how do you feel? Then I can do a pretty good job comparing. So we're gonna use a lot more forced choice. In this class, we're only gonna talk about how we analyze forced choice. There's a whole nother technique how you analyze open-ended, which is another class. So open-ended, how do you feel today? What is it like to go underwater basket weaving? And this may be the first time I've used this example. This is my favorite example, underwater basket weaving. You'll hear it a lot. No, it's not a real thing. Thanks for wondering. They're used to side point. When recreation was kind of laughed at as a degree or even a profession, when it's like, oh, that's just playing. It's just like it's not meaningful. Like we know it's meaningful, right? And you can do a lot of positive impact of recreation. But when people just look at it as not meaningful, the joke was all it is underwater basket weaving. That's what you do. You go underwater basket. That's where that comes from. What have you done in your life like? Okay, those are all open-ended. Forced choice, did you feel well today? Yes or no? How satisfied were you with your underwater basket weaving experience? Best thing ever? Hated it. Pretty good. You know. Your choice. Have you been stressed lately? Yes, no, unsure. That's forced choice. I didn't give you an option to say anything other than this. Share with us what's been troubling with you. Open-ended. A lot more information here in the open-ended, a lot harder to analyze. I've shown you examples of these already. Strongly agree to strongly disagree. We call these Likert type. Likert was the person who came up with these. This is very common. It's a nice way to measure things. Strongly agree to strongly disagree. We can measure it using or at interval level. You don't see these much, but these are called semantic differential. You don't actually have to know these because you don't see it much, but it's putting really opposite things here. Okay. What was the perception of the staff? Mean, helpful, unhelpful, or sorry, mean, friendly, unhelpful, helpful, disorganized, organized, accessible, inaccessible. Okay. So you just anchor both ends and then ask people to rate them. It's called semantic differential. You don't see it a lot. It's pretty good. Now you can ask people to rank things. Okay. Rank the following in order of importance. Number 1 being the most important and number 5 the least important. Nice thing now, because we do so much of this online now, these are usually drag and drop. It's just another version, another format for an interval scale. Good. If you want to write your own questionnaire items, the first thing you need to do is figure out what you're measuring. Is it positive development? Is it anxiety? Is it sense of community? Is it life satisfaction? Is it intention to volunteer? Okay. Then you want to identify your respondent's reading level. This is an important point. I'm going to pause here. This isn't just about like English, Spanish, Italian. This is a lot to do with age and reading level. So I do a lot of work with youth, right? Positive youth development. Okay. When we survey youth, the best thing that ever happened to youth surveys is emojis. Because kids get them. So when we survey kids, we use a lot of emojis. But it's also just thinking about your vocabulary, right? If I'm doing a survey with 12-year-olds, even if it's words, it's gonna be different language than if I gave you a survey. But think about who's doing it. Who's got it. Decide why I put a picture from 8 Mile here, I don't know. But are you gonna measure it with one item or multiple? Multiple gives us more information, it's more nuance. But people don't like to fill out long surveys. So you've got to strike that balance. How important is to you to have the nuance? How is important to you that people finish your survey? And there's not a, I can't give you a right answer to that. It's part art, part science. So as I said, I've already really introduced multiple item things to you, but here's another way to think about it, right? So you ever seen one of these like little pop scales? Does he like you or she like you? Okay. Yes, no, maybe, single item. Or does he know who you are? How frequently do you talk? How frequently does he text you? When your friends see you, do they think he likes you? Have you ever had a moment that felt like you wanted to kiss you? Like all these really are indicators. All these are indicators. So we could do it like this. Or we could do it like this. This gives us more information, more detail, but that's a lot faster. Stress, I've showed you this example. Okay. But I want to point something out to you. So, there are 7 items here. I'm gonna read them to you. You stop me when one of them is different than the others. Been upset, in the last month, how often have you been upset because of something that happened unexpectedly? Felt you were unable to control important things? Felt nervous? Felt confident in your ability to handle your personal problems? Felt that things were going your way? Been angered by things outside of your control? Which 2 of those are different than the others? Or I guess. Savannah?
So felt confident and felt that.
Felt confident, felt things. Yeah, right. What's different about them? They're positive. Yeah, they're positive. And these are negative, right? So any idea why someone might do that?
See if you're just going through a survey and going.
Ding, 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 ding. Yeah, that's exactly why. It's exactly why we do it. Okay, it's an attention check. It's not good practice. You see it all the time, which is why I introduced you. Even scales are used a lot, like the stress measurement. Okay, we find increasingly we don't get good data when we do that because it like confuses people. But you will see it a lot. Now, I told you if you're gonna take all of these, we're gonna like add them up and take an average, okay? But would that make sense to include those 2? Because they're different. So what might I do with that? How might I score that? Any guesses? Okay, if these are on a 5-point scale. Okay, so let's say, let's pretend it's only 3. So let's say the first 2 are negative, someone says 4, 3, the next one is positive, and someone says 5. Okay. Doesn't make sense to include them together. What might I do with this one? Joe, was that a hand?
Probably have to use the inverse.
Yeah, you
score.
just flip it. Yep, exactly. Okay, so I flip it. Okay, so when I score it, I make 5s 1, I make 4 2, 3 stay the same, and then vice versa. I reverse score it is the technical term. Okay. I recommend you don't do that, but sometimes frequently you're going to be using measurements that have been used a lot and someone else made. And it's good to use those because you can compare it. So you need to be aware when you see it that you're going to reverse score this. Okay. Speaking of, a lot of folks like myself have developed measurements for lots of different things. Okay. There is no need to reinvent the wheel. If you decide you want to measure sense of community, if you decide you want to measure stress, if you decide you want to measure almost anything you can think of, usually a quick Google search, certainly with Google Scholar, if you say depression measurement or a sense of community scale, you will find something that someone else has already put together. Use it. This is not cheating. Okay, use it, cite it. Okay. We use the sense of community index from McMillan and Chavez, 19. Forget, I've used this one. Use it. Okay, it's nothing wrong with that. And usually you can, certainly the major things you can find just on Google. All right. I'm gonna give you a list here of tips for writing excellent items. We're gonna go through the list. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna practice. We're actually gonna practice writing bad ones because I think it's easier to notice when it's bad than when it's good. Okay. But just bear with me through the list. Avoid double-barreled questions or double-barreled items. This is a new term, but what this is, double-barreled means asking about two things in the same item. Asking about two things in the same item. So if I said, Emma, rate your satisfaction with parking and lunch on a 5-point scale. 5 being great, 1 being terrible. She would look at me like, well, do you want lunch or you want parking? Like, which is it? And I see some of you are laughing because that seems like an absurd example. Now, because you see surveys a lot in life, right? You're gonna see this all the time. You're gonna see it all the time. It's a really common mistake. Not as extreme as I just made it, but it's a really common mistake. So asking about more than one thing in the same item. In general, avoid asking about causal. Okay, here's what we're going to talk about, like causal. So did one thing cause one thing, another thing to happen? Okay. Did one thing make another thing to happen? In general, not always, but in general, we want to avoid asking people's perceptions about what caused things. If I said, Annika, did having trouble parking today make you unhappy? By the way, folks, sorry, I'm not picking on you. I'm just trying to help myself with names. So don't feel like it's not like, oh, you're not paying attention. I'm picking on you. I'm just trying to help myself with names. Okay. She might say, yes, it did. But it actually might not have anything to do with why she's unhappy today. Okay. You're really asking her perception about how those things are related. Okay. I could ask Kayla, do aliens make you sad? She could say, yes, seeing aliens makes me sad. Doesn't mean that seeing aliens makes her sad. That's her perception. That's her perception. And we'll talk about how to do that. Okay. Be clear and brief. Seems obvious. It's not always. Okay. Avoid leading questions. Avoid leading questions. Candace, tell me how much you love this class on a 5-point scale. 5 being best class ever, 1 being almost the best class ever. They write in the language of respond and choose. We talked about that already. That's not just English, German, Spanish. That's about reading level. Okay, avoid technical jargon. Again, you'll see it. You'll be surprised how much we get in our own little bubble. Okay. What's a tourism, folks? What's a technical term that you use? Can you think of something? I can't either. That's what I was asking you. But, we'll come back to this. Avoid negative questions. Do you not like the parking situation at ASU? Our brain just struggles to, our brain goes, what? What? It's just hard to process. Okay. Use precise alternatives. I'll show you an example. But this means we don't want overlap in our choices. If I ask, what is your age? 0 to 20? 15 to 25? 20 to 30? Like, well, you can go in two categories. That's another one you'll see a lot, and I'll show you what you did. Instructions, we've talked about a little bit. Provide contact information for follow-up, we've talked about. And thank participants, we've talked about. Thanking participants will increase how many people will fill out your survey, I promise you. Not a list you have to memorize. Pilot test, I forgot. Pilot test just means before you like actually need data, okay, give your questionnaire to a few people. Proofread. Also, sometimes something that makes sense to you, maybe it's that technical term, may not make sense to someone else. So practice it, which is what pilot tests mean before you send it out. All right. Here are the whatever. All right, right directions, we've talked about that, so I'm gonna skip it. All right, so let's look at some bad questions, because it's easier to identify the bad ones and the good ones. How satisfied are you with how the administrators, coaches, and referees have interacted with your children in this league? Leslie, odd or even?
Even.
Mm-hmm.
It is even. Okay, your row or another row?
Another row,
Okay, 1, 2, or 4?
2.
Okay, row 2, what's wrong with this? Yeah,
It's asking about like 3 different.
yes,
types of
it's actually
people.
triple barreled. It's asking about 3 different things. Referees were great. My coach was terrible. The administrators, I don't know them. Well, what do I answer? What do I answer? Okay. Again, you'll see this. I promise you. This is really hard to see. Apologize. Okay. Which of the following did you find extremely satisfying with your overall Utah Royals, the soccer club experience this season? Which of the following did you find extremely satisfying with your experience? And that gives 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 choices. Okay. This was a little trickier. Megan, odd or even?
Even.
It is odd. Your row. Okay. So a couple possibilities here. What do you have? What do you see wrong with this? Anyone, it can be you're welcome to answer, but don't feel like you're on your own.
I feel like it's a leading question.
You feel like it's leading? Okay, I'll buy that. What did you find extremely satisfying? I'll buy that. Okay. In this case, they probably want to know like what really brought you joy, what was really good. So I think it's okay, but I get where you're coming from. Okay. Anybody have any other problems with this? I have 2. I will tell you. Kendra.
Is it a causal question?
I see why you're making that argument. But it's really, are you satisfied with, this gets tricky, right? Are you satisfied with it? Not, did it make you satisfied? That's really tricky, but I understand why you say that. Let me help you out here. Okay. How many do I pick? It doesn't tell me. Okay. Is it pick 3? Can I pick all of them? Because I only pick 1. And the other thing is, you can't tell this. But when I tried to fill this out, I forget what the rule was, but it stopped me because I like violated. It was like pick 3 or something, and it wouldn't let me because I picked 4. It didn't tell me I could only pick 3. So you need to see if it's all of them. Say check all that apply. Check up to 3. Check your top 1. Okay. Right. So B, it does not have clear directions. The other thing which is hard for you to see, but 3 of these are in bold and the rest are not, which is just sloppy. Just sloppy work for a professional. Professional should be doing this. It was probably an intern, honestly.
I also realized there's a none of the following, and there isn't a like all of the following.
Oh, yeah, good point. Yeah, all the following or all the above would be, oh, actually, you know what else is interesting? None of the following. There's nothing that follows. I didn't even catch that. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Honestly, this was probably an intern, so don't be this intern. Don't be this intern. That was tough. If you were in a foreign country and did not speak the language at all, but you knew that your tour guide was fluent in that language, enjoyed interacting with the locals, and with you most of the time you were on the trip, would you? Okay, this is not clear and brief. This is not clear and brief. Do you hate your coach? Leading. Negative. That was, why would you not want to take part in our program? This is that negative. And again, it's a decent question. It's just that our brain is decent information to want to know. Okay. But the way it's worded, our brain really has a hard time with that. All right. Here's the one I told you today. What is your yearly household income? Less than 20,000, 20 to 60, 60 to 100, 100 or more. Everybody just take 10 seconds and look at that. That's us feeling confident, I think. Either that or she was moving. All right. What do you see?
It's overlapping.
It's overlapping. Yeah. Overlapping, not precise alternatives, whatever you want to say. If I make 60,000, do I pick B or do I pick C? If I make 100,000, do I pick C or do I pick D? Not sure. The way we fix that is really simple. 60,001, 100,001. That's what I fix that. You'll see this one. This and double barreled are the two you will see really commonly when you're looking at surveys. Joe?
You'd probably want to be more clear too, whether it's gross or net.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Yeah. Okay. Do you feel like involvement in clubs increases your sense of community? Kendra, I'm gonna pick on you because you just said it. What's this one doing?
Causal?
Causal, yeah. Yeah, this is ask husband. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. The better way to do that, is to ask two things. I feel a sense of community at ASU. I'm involved in student clubs, and then we let the analysis do the work. Our people who are involved in a lot of student clubs, they also feel a high sense of community. And the analysis will do the work for us. I'm not saying we never do things like this. And sometimes we do just for, here's a good word for you, parsimony's sake. This is just a good vocabulary word to have in life. Parsimony kind of sounds like parsley, but that's nothing to do with parsley. Okay. Brevity means brevity, making things condensed. Okay. So sometimes we don't want to ask a bunch of items, but we want to know this, so we ask it. It's not the end of the world. It's not best. Okay. A couple other things to know, just real quick here. Acquiescence bias. To acquiesce means to agree with. Okay. Acquiescence bias is the tendency to agree. So this comes into play when we ask strongly agree to strongly disagree items. Okay. Acquiescence bias, the tendency to agree. What we know is people with less education are more likely to agree with statements. So if you're using a bunch of items that are strongly agree to strongly disagree, people with less education are more likely to agree with those regardless of what they are. Why do you think that is? What do you think? Any ideas? Yeah, Annika.
Path of least resistance, they could have been taught that their entire life. I don't know.
Say it one more time, I just didn't hear you.
Path of least resistance could have been taught that their entire life.
Path of least
Okay.
resistance? Yeah, yeah, good point. Yeah, good point. Like just, it doesn't require as much cognitive work, path of least resistance. Okay. The other thing here is there's a kind of a power imbalance, right? So we need to be aware of power. So Particularly, like, if I go in as a professor and give a survey, like, there's a power imbalance, and so there's this tendency to just agree. I just agree. Social desirability bias is a similar thing, okay? This is the tendency to say what you think the researcher wants to hear. So social desirability becomes a problem, for example, when we're doing teen surveys on drinking, illicit drug use, sexual activity. No matter how much we can tell you it's anonymous, no one's gonna know your answer. There's still something human nature that doesn't want to tell you, right? Okay, so we just always need to be aware. Survey fatigue, again, this is that art and science, right? So what's the right length of the survey? It's people when they get tired, if it's too long, when they get tired, they start just being like, okay, so it's finding that right length. What order do we put things in? Depends. It's the usual answer in this class. It depends. General rule, two general rules that sometimes contradict each other. One is put your most important questions or items early in the survey. The reason being, if people stop taking it, if they get tired and stop taking it, you've got the most important information. Another line of thought is to put the easy questions first, because it just kind of gets people warmed up and then they keep going. And I know I've opened surveys and the first question requires a lot of cognitive thought and I close it. Okay, path of least resistance. So yeah, it's not always a right answer at some point. Demographics, so there's like race, ethnicity, gender items. You'll often see those first. It depends. Is that important to you? Is it one of your important things, knowing who people are? Or is it knowing their attitudes? What's more important? So sometimes first, sometimes last is important. How many choices? So are you doing a 5-point scale, a 7-point scale, a 100-point scale? You know, it's a bit of a visual question, particularly if a lot of people are gonna do it on their phone, right? You want to reduce it. So these are just things to consider. No right answer, just things to consider. And then the last term for you, you've already heard me say, is response rate, which is just how many people I asked to fill out my survey, how many people did. And if I asked 30 people to fill it out, 20 do, my response rate is 66.67%. If I ask 10 people to fill it out, 5 people do, my response rate is 50%. If I email out a survey, I just email out in general, is obviously it depends, but what do you think an average response rate is? Any guesses? Just curious what you think. Higher or lower than 50%? Lower, lower, yep. More like 10 to 20%. You know, if you have a very invested population, we did I'm sure I'll talk about this, we did a big project with Sun City. So Sun City is one of those 55+ communities in Arizona. We did an electronic survey out to like 30,000 people. We got 7,000 responses, so a little less than a third. I think I'm gonna, let me ask you this. I don't want to do that. I'm gonna go with my gut. And that's, I think you got a pretty good handle on this. We'll start next class, and I've got 5 more minutes. We'll get a little early, but I got 5 more minutes. Next class, we'll start with a little review on writing questionnaire items. Okay. But things to know coming up. App 1 is coming up. Is it next Monday or next Wednesday? Do you remember?
It's the 9th.
That's what I thought. All right. Here's what app 1 looks like. You're gonna develop a questionnaire. So the first thing you're gonna do is pick a topic. So we sometimes refer to that in a research question. So you need at least two variables. So we talked about predictors and outcomes last time. Okay. So does one thing predict another? Okay. Does participation in underwater basket weaving increase a sense of community? Okay, predictor, participation in underwater basket weaving, outcome, sense of community. Whatever you want, whatever is interesting to you, this is not gonna be your final project. This is just for purposes of this, so do whatever you want, okay? Sometimes I find people, this really stumps them, okay? If this part, like coming up with a topic, is stumping you, do not let it drive you crazy. Shoot me a text or an email and let's work through it really quick. This is not where I want you to spend your mental energy, okay? So if you're like, I can't think of a topic, like shoot me a text or email, drop by in 5 minutes, we'll figure something out. Don't waste your mental energy there. Okay. Part two, identify your variables. Okay, what are you measuring? Okay. In this example, we're measuring participation in underwater basket weaving and sense community. Then you're gonna do a little table like this. You're gonna tell me what the variable is. You're gonna tell me what level of measurement it's being measured at. You're gonna tell me what the questionnaire item is, okay, so what it says, and what the scale is. Okay, I've given you on the instruction example of a multi-item measurement of hope. Okay, it's just an example, so you can't use hope as one of yours. Okay, so hope is measured with looks like 4 things. Less than need to scroll up. Okay, 6 items. Okay, so the variable is hope. It's measured at the interval level. Okay, it has these 6 items measured on this 5-point strongly agree, strongly disagree. Part 3, describe in detail how you administer your questionnaire. Are you gonna do it online, in person? Are you gonna harass people in Taylor Mall? Think specifically, how are you gonna get it to people? All I'm looking for here is for you to start thinking about how we actually get data in the world. Because it's not easy. It's a pain in the rear. It's a pain in the rear. So there isn't a right answer there. Just I really want you to think about if you were to do this, how would you actually get data? Are you gonna post it? Does your mom have 1,000 Facebook friends and post there every day? Are you gonna ask her to post it to her Facebook friends? Okay, are you gonna harass people in Taylor Mall? Are you gonna give people a gift card for doing it? Okay, just think about it. Okay. Part 4, create the questionnaire in Google Forms. Your questionnaire should also have at least 3 demographic variables. So if you don't know what demographics are, you can Google that, but gender, major, age, all those things. Okay. Should include at least 1 open-ended question. Should be professionally formatted. I'm gonna actually add a little bit to these directions because I find there's a few things that people always miss and I need to add to it. Grace, you have a question?
I do. It was kind of like when you were on the slides though, it was when you were looking at the bad questions, and I don't know if you touched on this already, but is it easier if you like word a question as in like instead of saying like, do you feel this way? Instead you say like because I saw that the bad ones, a lot of them said like, do you feel, and then the ones that you said were better, they were like,
Yeah, so if you're using Likert, I do think that's a best practice. Okay. If you're already confused, don't worry about this, but yeah, I think that's a good practice to use that. Rate your agreement with these statements, and the statements are, I feel happy, I this, I that. You tend to get, people can identify with that a little more. There's a
Okay.
whole science called psychometrics, which is how we word things,
Mhm.
and that's what that gets into. Okay. Part 5, which right now you wouldn't even know because we haven't talked about the final project much, but we're gonna talk about it hopefully on Thursday. Part 5 is like, what's making you nervous? What are you concerned about? Again, obviously there's no wrong answers here. This is just me checking in with you. Just me checking in with you. We're gonna talk more about this on Thursday. Because I think you need a little bit more information about this, and we'll practice more questionnaires on Thursday. But I wanted to introduce it to you because it's a week out, so if anybody's getting anxious, but this is I forget what called level 2. It's the smaller point application assignment. It's not that. Again, we'll talk more about it on Thursday. We'll practice some more. I'm going to introduce the final project to you on Thursday. We're going to talk about project groups, not put them together. What other questions? What questions do you have? Comments? Snide remarks? Oh, I do have one other thing. It's that I found the steps and another elevator. All of a sudden I got people's attention. People are packing up now. All right, two things. If you come out of here and go right and go past that first elevator, okay, there's another one that doesn't stop at the second floor. So it's a little faster. And if you go down it, you'll see where it comes in. And there's a sign out front that tells you to go to someplace else for ASU classrooms, but you can ignore that. Okay. If you want the steps, come out of here and go left. Go all the way to the end, the elevator will be there. Turn left again. Okay. Go to the end of that hallway. The door is not labeled. And it looks a little creepy. It's not too bad in there though. Actually, they can just say exit, and there's steps. The stairwells are nice and wide, shallow steps. I go down to the second level and then come out and then walk across to the big steps by the elevator. But you can walk all the way down and then it dumps you basically back whole step. It's 6 of one, half dozen of another, but I'm like, get me outside sooner rather than later. So yeah, so another elevator, just go past that one. Or if you want the steps, you don't want to wait, just go left and you'll run into it. And I'm gonna go down the steps if you wanna, if anybody wants me to check. All right, folks, thanks. Have a great day. I'll see you Thursday.
I was like, I get here by 9 AM, I stay until